What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? I know that it's probably felt like a century since I've uploaded any type of content. I've just been insanely preoccupied with post-production for my latest short film, so I've just been devoting a lot of time to editing and wrapping everything up there. But I figured I would finally give you guys something. What am I doing today? I am ranking and talking about every Darren Aronofsky film. Why? Simply because I felt like it, and I feel like I don't really get to talk enough about Darren Aronofsky on this channel, so I'm now just giving myself the opportunity to do that. So just briefly, Darren Aronofsky is a filmmaker that I admire so much. He's one of my favorite contemporary filmmakers out there, and he was also kind of one of my gateway filmmakers into more art house type of filmmaking, with films like Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan, and even The Wrestler. Like, those are three films that I watched pretty early on in my film discovery journey, and just opened my eyes up a lot more to the potential that the art of filmmaking had and the type of power that it can deliver. So, I mean, I have a lot of thanks to give to Darren Aronofsky, for really getting me to, early on in my life, appreciate the more creative and ambitious side of filmmaking. But also, briefly, please tell everybody you know about my short film festival that I'll be streaming live here in October. If you have a short film that you'd like to present, or if you know anybody that might have a short film that they'd like to present, the link is in the description box below, and it has all the details. So, and it's really important that everybody shares it around because you can't find it on Film Freeway, so share that link around as much as you can. And I'll also be premiering my short film at the very end of that festival as well, so if that's something that intrigues you, you can show up for that. But with that being said, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this list at number 8, which is... So at number 8, we have Noah. I'm pretty sure everybody already guessed that this would be at the very bottom of my list. And you're right, it definitely is. But here's a kicker. I actually enjoyed this film quite a bit. It's only at the bottom by default because I just enjoy all of the other films more. But I actually enjoy Noah for what it was. I know that when this film came out, almost everybody I knew that was a film lover pretty much either just thought it was mid or just outright hated it. But for me personally, I thought that this was quite an enjoyable and engaging experience. I just thought that through and through, this film was quite visceral. Obviously, I kind of went into this film expecting a type of visceral experience because that's just the kind of filmmaker that Aronofsky is. But I loved seeing the biblical tale of Noah's Ark being told through the Aronofsky lens. There was just something about that and the way that it's presented through Aronofsky's perspective that I just got a lot out of. I like that Aronofsky kind of just goes full mythological tale with it and just doesn't hold back and isn't concerned with being traditionally accurate to what most people perceive the Noah's Ark story to be. I like that he just kind of went a little crazy with it and did his own thing. And it's because of that reason why I feel like this film didn't succeed very well. I mean, obviously people have perfectly valid criticisms when it comes to this film, but like for the most part, people who are deeply Christian or hold any kind of traditional belief in the Bible are going to absolutely hate this film. But then you're going to have a whole other group of people that don't really care too much about the traditional interpretation of the story, but at the same time, they're going to feel like this film is just kind of surface level and basic. And we get this really breathtaking presentation of, traditional evolution of species as it leads up to human beings, which is basically Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And in a way, it's kind of trying to mesh both evolution beliefs and creationist beliefs. And even though in terms of my personal beliefs, I don't really agree with that at all, to me, evolution is evolution. There is no mending the two together. But in a way, I still really appreciate the artistry that it took to present it and make it happen. But anyway, yeah, I don't really have much more to say about Noah. Just know that, yeah, it's my least favorite Darren Aronofsky film, but I do actually enjoy the movie. I don't think it's that bad. So at number 7, we have Pi, which is Darren Aronofsky's directorial debut. So Pi is a film that I actually saw for the first time in IMAX in that live A24 event. I didn't really know anything about this movie going into it. All I knew was that it was Darren Aronofsky's first feature film, and I came out enjoying it quite a bit. Very early on, you can tell that Darren Aronofsky is trying to kind of set a foundation for himself with being this kind of ambitiously conceptual type of art house filmmaker. With this one, obviously there's issues with the film that I have in terms of writing and dialogue and, even the performance from the main actor. But this is a film that he made with a sincerely low budget. I think he made it with like a few $1,000s and that was it. And I think for the resources that he had, he was able to make something that is quite effective and something that always had me interested throughout the runtime. In short, this film is basically about somebody who kind of gets obsessed with the idea of this mathematic formula existing that can virtually predict the future. And thematically speaking, obviously this film explores concepts of determinism, concepts of randomness and chaos, and whether or not chaos can actually create order and create a steered path for somebody. And ultimately it becomes a film that is trying to encourage people to appreciate the present and just kind of live in the now and to not overwhelm themselves with the uncertainties of our future. Surprisingly enough, Mark Margolis is actually in this film and he plays a significant role. Rest in peace to an absolute legend. But yeah, narratively and thematically speaking, he has a pretty important role to play. And honestly, is my favorite performance in the film. He's not in the film that much, but when he's in it, I think he's really great. This is a film that is ultimately just about being along for the ride. Doesn't really matter where you end up by the end of the film. And I just feel like it's not one of those films where you really have to understand all of it in order to really appreciate it and be engaged with the material. If I had to rate Pi, I'd probably give it a very strong 6 out of 10. Again, I think for this being Darren Aronofsky's first feature film, and with the resources that he had, I feel like that he really did do an excellent job, establishing himself as an artist and as a filmmaker and using his limited resources to bring something ambitious to life like this. So on number 6, we have Mother. So Mother is another one of those Darren Aronofsky films where people are just absolutely mixed and divided on. I personally really love this film. I think it's fantastic. I've seen it about 3 or 4 times, and the sting never wears off. I just get so much out of it. It's such an unforgivingly visceral experience. And yeah, it's allegory galore. To me, this film is really a gigantic exploration and criticism of the Christian and biblical worldview of Mother Earth. Ultimately, I feel like what this film is demonstrating in a nutshell is that ideas of worshiping a god and, ideas of feeling like an afterlife is guaranteed contributes to humanity mistreating the earth that they currently live on. And it's through this lens that this film just delivers absolute insanity from start to finish. It just really goes for it with every single scene. It's, as I mentioned, very unforgiving with the type of content that's explored. It's violent as hell. It's fucking demeaning as hell. It's everything in the book that you would kind of expect when it comes to a reactionary type of film that is there to provoke a reaction from the audience. And it just delivers such an intense and suspenseful and claustrophobic type of filmmaking. I can't even remember a single wide shot in this movie. Pretty much this entire film is presented through this very close-up type of lens and framework. And it just makes it feel that much more chaotic and that much more intense throughout the experience. But yeah, I mean, I totally understand why people aren't in love with this film because, yeah, people are going to say that it's extremely on the nose. Aronofsky is continuing to hit you over the head over and over again, with the same kind of message. But personally, I'm just in love with the presentation. I also really like the themes. And I just think that through and through, this film is super engaging and super suspenseful, and I really couldn't get enough of it. So yeah, that's why Mother's number 6 on my list. And even though it's rather low on the list, I do really dig this film quite a bit. So at number 5, we have The Whale, which is Darren Aronofsky's most recent film, starring the one and only Brendan Fraser. This is a film that I was highly anticipating before it came out, and when it finally came out, I really fell in love with this film. Again, this one ended up being a bit more divisive as well, kind of for more obvious reasons. But ultimately, this film delivered, for me, such a powerful and emotional and inspirational, yet also incredibly depressing and heartbreaking film that is driven by the lead performance from Brendan Fraser, who absolutely fucking kills it in this movie. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, Aronofsky's direction is really great, as it always is. But really, if it wasn't for Brendan Fraser's incredible performance, I don't think this film would have worked as great as it did. Because this film is super emotional because of him. I think that he gives an incredible performance. I think it's fantastic that, you know, he won the Oscar for Best Actor. He deserved it 1,000%. And yeah, I have a whole review on this one already, so I won't go that deep into it at all. So if you want to check that out, please do. But yeah, this film, I feel like, is written really great. It's directed fantastically. And Brendan Fraser, again, super great performance. Such a deeply emotional film. I haven't seen it since its theatrical release because it just really, really got to me on a deeper emotional level. And, you know, such a heavy film, lack of a better word. And I just feel like it's going to take me some time before I actually go back and revisit this one. But yeah, I love The Whale. That's my take on it. That's why it's number 5 on my list. So number 4, we have Black Swan, that stars Natalie Portman. So Black Swan is, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, one of the earlier Darren Aronofsky films that I've seen. And this is a film that I loved back then, and it's still a film that I deeply love now. To me, this is just a brilliantly dark and thematically deep psychological thriller / horror film. And yeah, it takes a lot of inspiration from Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue. But both Black Swan and Perfect Blue are different enough for me to appreciate both of them in their own right. And here with Black Swan, this one in particular has a focus on ballet and the kind of tortures that are involved with ballet, and also diving into emotional and sexual repression of Natalie Portman's character due to her, not only the workforce that she's in and the career path that she's chosen, but also her strict and secluded lifestyle. Her mother in this one is basically this super strict and conservative mother figure who has just confined her daughter to this household. And it plays a huge part in exacerbating the type of psychosis and the spiraling downfall that she experiences, like in the second half of this film. And it's just a riveting experience. This film, again, through Darren Aronofsky's vision, is able to build suspense. It's able to substantiate its themes throughout the experience. And it just really creates like everything that you would want out of a substantive psychological thriller film. And I think it hits every point really well, and then some more because of that creative personality that Aronofsky brought to the table. And yeah, that scene with Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis is pretty good too. So number 3, we have The Wrestler, which stars Mickey Rourke. So The Wrestler is, I mean, this actually might be most people's favorite Darren Aronofsky film, and I really don't blame them. I rewatched this film like 2 or 3 weeks ago in preparation for this video, and I just got so much out of this film. This is a film that, a lot like some of Aronofsky's work, is just deeply emotional and heartbreaking in so many ways. I remember back when I was younger, I saw the trailer for this film. I really didn't think anything of it. I think that was like the case for most people who wasn't familiar with Darren Aronofsky's work. And then when I finally watched it again, even at a young age, I was just so shocked and so mind blown with all of the content that this film offered. Obviously, the lead performance for Mickey Rourke is really great. Again, like, this is a performance that he really has to bring it when it comes to the emotional side of acting. And he has a few scenes here that, I mean, are just really, really great. Especially scenes that he has with his daughter character, which is basically like him just desperately trying to bring together this rift that he's created between them. And it's just a really great scene, really great performance, even from both the actors, really great. and just the level of dedication that he gives to this part in terms of the physicality of it. I mean, there's a lot of intense wrestling sequences that, I think open a lot of people's eyes to the authenticity of wrestling, of performative wrestling. Because I know tons of people, will just kind of write off wrestling as being completely fake. And sure, it is fake to a pretty good extent because it is entertainment and it is all scripted. But at the same time, depending on what you watch and where you go, these people still give so much mentally and physically to their careers and to their performances. And these elements of performative wrestling does turn it into an art of itself. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And again, like what these people do in terms of sacrificing themselves for this art, I think is something that more people need to appreciate. And I'm glad that this film kind of brought it to light in a way that I personally didn't see before watching this film. And the few times that I have discussed this film with Perry, each time that we talk about it, he never fails to mention, or at least he's heard this from somewhere. He mentions that the wrestler is the least Aronofsky that Aronofsky has ever Aronofsky'd. And I think that is a very true statement because, when it comes to some of his other films that are a lot more conceptually ambitious, this one is a lot more subtle, a lot more tame when it comes to that department. It's still very bold and boundary pushing in different ways, but conceptually speaking, it's very simple, and this film simply focuses on the drama. And I think that for him to dial himself back and to have a more dramatically driven film that isn't focused on, more high concept ideas, I just think really impressed people and really proved himself as an artist and as a filmmaker to people who haven't really been like the biggest appreciators of his work. But yeah, The Wrestler is fantastic. Adventure number 1, I 100% respect that because this film is truly fantastic all the way through. So number 2, we have Requiem for a Dream. This is a film that when I first watched it, I don't think I've ever seen a film this visceral, this unforgivingly depressing, and also just this hyper stylistic. Granted, I did see this film when I was younger. I think I saw it when I was like 16 or 17, but it's a film that really blew me away on pretty much every single phase of filmmaking. Again, the editing style was hyper energetic and just full of life. Just the presentation of this film overall, again, is incredibly visceral. I just love how visceral of a filmmaker Darren Aronofsky is, and he brings that to the table tenfold here. Obviously this film, in terms of theme, it's very, very simple. In a nutshell, it's basically just about drug addiction and why people fall into drug addiction and how drug addiction will completely ruin your life in every single possible worst way possible. It doesn't have the most profound thesis. It doesn't have the most complex thesis. But what it does have is an incredibly creative and visceral presentation style that just makes everybody just so engaged with the material and just either full of disgust, full of heartbreak. Pretty much everybody in this film gives a great performance. Jared Leto even gives a great performance. Jennifer Connelly is insane in this movie, and the level of dedication that she brought to her character and her performance is extremely admirable. Everybody knows what she had to do in this film, and I admire her a lot for that. Even Marlon Wayans is really good in this film. But obviously my favorite performance in this film is from Ellen Burstyn. She gives honestly one of the better performances from an actress I've ever seen in this film. Not only does she have sequences where she has to express just extreme terror and just an immense level of psychosis, but she also has a scene with a monologue that is just so deeply heartbreaking and emotional and always yanks tears out of me. She is absolutely incredible in this film. And the third act is obviously just absolute insanity. I mean, it's it's hard to really even put into words how insane the third act of this film actually is. I didn't mention, but I have a whole review on this film. I think it's like a 10-minute plus review. So if you want to hear me go more in depth, please check out that review. But yeah, this film is absolutely insane. I think this is a great film to kind of help people get into art house cinema because of just how fast paced and energetic it is and how constantly engaging it is. When people think art house, they don't think fast paced filmmaking. They think of things that are like incredibly slow and really just demand a lot of your patience. This is not the case. This is a good way to get somebody to realize how unique and different the art of filmmaking can be. But anyways, that's my number 2, so it's finally time to move on to number 1. And by logical deduction, y'all already know what it is, and it might surprise a lot of y'all, but my number 1 is The Fountain, which stars Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz. So The Fountain is a film that I watched for the first time about 5 or 6 months ago. I have an entire review on it. I think it's a 12-minute review, I think. And I even go into my thoughts and interpretations when it comes to the ending of this film. So I highly suggest checking that video out if you actually want to hear something more extensive. But with that being said, obviously, I am deeply in love with this film. And this is a film that is quite divisive in terms of how people feel about it. This is actually one of the more lower-rated Darren Aronofsky films in terms of critical reception. And I was just so shocked by that fact because I thought this film delivered such a unique and breathtaking and spiritual experience that I rarely get when it comes to films. Just for me personally, this film delivers such a powerfully unique experience that I found to be so thought-provoking and so emotional and just has so much staying power. Again, I do understand why it wouldn't be everybody's cup of tea, but I just feel like you gotta have some appreciation for this movie. I mean, to me, it's just so artful, so conceptually boundary pushing, and there's just so much here for film lovers to really enjoy and appreciate that sometimes it just kind of shocks me when somebody watches this film and they're like, The central themes of this film are about coming to terms with their own mortality and also overcoming the grief that you feel when it comes to losing a loved one. And those two themes kind of come hand in hand with each other, and I think it explores them on such an ambitious and thought-provoking level that, it just floors me how well everything was explored in this film. And this film kind of has it explores all these themes and its characters through a past, present, and future type of lens that I think might be the reason why people kind of aren't on board with it, because it does jump around and find an elaborate way to express its ideas and its messages. But personally, I just loved it. It felt grandiose. It felt larger than life. It's filled with mountains of symbolic and metaphorical imagery that is obviously there for the audience to interpret. And I just thought all of that is just so compelling. And not to mention the score in this film from Clint Mansell, who has done a lot of Aronofsky scores. This is, I think, my favorite score from him. It is so powerful and so deeply moving. Even just the score alone, even if I didn't have the imagery to this film and just listen to the score, I would be moved to tears. It's an excellent musical composition that is there to accompany an excellent vision from Darren Aronofsky, and it just combines to make something that is so beautiful and so immersive. And I understand that this may have not been the one you expected me to put at number 1, but I hope I surprised you in a good way. If you've been sleeping on this film, I'm telling you, please check it out with the most open of minds possible. It really does deserve your viewership. I think this was like Darren Aronofsky's ultimate passion project when it came out. It was supposed to come out originally starring Brad Pitt, and then it fell through for years, and later on finally got, I guess, the funding and the investment to make it happen. And the film that we see is what we got, and I am truly in love with it. I think it's beautiful. I hope that one day I'm able to catch this film on the big screen, like as a re-release in theaters or something. And also, it would be awesome if this film got into the Criterion Collection. I know that some people would rather some of the other films get in there, but I think this would make a great addition to the Criterion Collection. But that's about it, guys. That's my Darren Aronofsky filmography ranked video. I hope you guys really enjoyed this list. I know it's been a while, as I mentioned, since I came out with content. But I hope that this will suffice for quite a while, because I'm not sure when I'm going to upload again, because I'm still going to be deep in post-production, and I do want to keep devoting a lot of time to my short film and making sure that is out and ready to present as soon as possible. But yeah, that's it, guys. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. If you really enjoyed what I had to say in this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.